Mas, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
I had so much fun on your podcast, The Daily Dose, with you and your wife. And I was like, you have got to come on my podcast so I can hear your crazy ass story.
Well, yeah, it's good to share that one.
Yeah. And it was funny because your wife and I were like, blah, 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 and I felt like we were talking over you quite a bit.
Oh, you know what? I don't feel that way at all. I mean, Dana likes, she asks great questions, and it's a shame that we decided we shouldn't interrupt each other.
You should or should not?
Should not, because it kind of breaks up the flow, and then everyone feels a bit weird. But we never get on each other's nerves about it. It just works.
It does. It was a lot of fun. I felt like you guys brought out the best in me. So thanks for that. It was a great experience.
Well, you're welcome.
And I wanted to hear your story. So I figured what we do, I like to start off with something called the lightning round. I like to put some resources at the front of the episode.
Okay.
So like books, did you have a favorite book that helped you in the beginning?
No, I just devoured the big book. So I knew what was the path that I was given to survive and to enjoy sobriety. And I was in a treatment center where they used the big book, and we also learned it's not perfect. Going to AA meetings, they were saying, it's not perfect. This doesn't work 100%, but it does work. But our mission is to get you to the point where you can then decide what works for you.
Right. Yeah. And the official title of the big book is actually Alcoholics Anonymous. It's lovingly referred. I don't know where that started.
Well, it does. I'm sure you're aware of this, but it does. It's an odd book. You're reading it in the end of the first quarter of the 21st century, and this book was written in the 1930s by white men.
Right. So, I already see where you're going with this. You're speaking my language.
There's a chapter in it called Chapter to the Wife, where they lay out rules for the wife. And I cringe because I go to a big book meeting. So you just read the thing. Okay. And then when you finish it, you start again. And every time we get to the chapter for the wife, I get real uncomfortable.
Do you really? Yeah.
Because it's just terrible.
I mean, listen, I appreciate that there are some good intentions, but I'm a little like, wow, how condescending is that?
I think that's it. And there's mansplaining in it, and it's just,
yeah.
And even with the best intentions in the world, you think, really, guys, you could have thought of some other way.
Well, I suppose it speaks to some people. So, whatever. There's that. Yeah. I'm writing a whole AA survival guide. I don't know if I mentioned that to you when I was on your podcast. Yeah. And so it's sort of like how to receive this information with a certain context and perspective so that you can work the 12 steps and then, get the benefit from it. And then if you need to, move on to adding other things into your life. So,
yeah.
But it's actually a really interesting text to study. There's a lot of really interesting ideas in there that really blew my mind and helped me to evolve. So it sounds like you had a similar experience.
The things that help me most actually is the stories. When you get through the original book, like the first 134 pages, and we're on the 4th edition. Well, I've got the 4th edition. It's the modern stories. They put stories of female alcoholics, and they put Muslims and African Americans stories in there, and the stories are the things that I find most helpful.
Yeah, me too, which is why I sort of do the podcast and have people tell their stories, because I feel like, the circumstances may be different, but the feelings are all the same. So I think that's what, when we hear the feelings part in everyone's stories, we relate and we're like, okay, maybe I can do this thing.
I mean, it works that way, just to the fact that you're not alone.
Exactly. That is it. That is actually it. It's that connection. I'm not alone. I'm not terminally unique, and I can get sober too. Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you have a go-to mantra or quote that you live by?
when you go to AA, there are so many, there are acronyms and quotes, and even people use quotes from movies, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Whatever works, right?
Whatever works. And one of the things that we actually, it just came up because I'd rather watch a movie than read a book. In fact, my first roommate in college told me that I was going to single-handedly destroy literature because he used to read classic books. And I said, oh yeah, I've seen the film. And it just drove him nuts.
Drove him mad. That's funny.
But, you know, the Shawshank Redemption, you know, get busy living or get busy dying. We use that one a lot.
I love that one. Yeah. Yeah, it speaks to dispelling fear. I love that. That's a good one.
The one
I might ask you not to. Sorry, I might ask you not to tap on your desk or whatever. That's okay.
About that.
Podcast.
I'll take the bracelet off. Hang on, there's like a clank on the desk. Yeah, I mean, there's just weird quotes like, you know, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but yeah, so we just use quotes to keep us going, you know, and there's some weird stories that you hear from other people in AA that stick with you as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You kind of remember them.
Yeah, obviously for me, like one day at a time is something that has helped me a lot, because they say that depression is about thinking about the past, or anxiety is about thinking about the future. And so, especially lately, the world just seems like it's on fire, from the abortion issues, political issues, war. There's just so much going on in the world that I can't solve the world's problems. And so I have to bring myself back to one day at a time, right here, right now. That's kind of next right thing.
And one of the things about AA is you actually learn that this advice could be given to everybody. Now, one day at a time could actually save quite a lot of hardships going on. And you think, okay, let's just deal with this first. Don't worry about what's next. Just get this fixed and then move on.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I find that, the 12 steps can be applied to just about everything.
Yep, they absolutely can.
So good. Do you have a regular self-care or recovery routine? Like, do you try to hit a certain number of meetings a week? Do you have a morning practice? What does that look like for you?
My wife got me an actual framed serenity prayer. It's a local artist did it in calligraphy, and I got it framed. It's right on the side of the wall, so it's the first thing I see when I get out of bed in the morning. So I don't read it out loud or anything. Just knowing it's there actually helps. What I do every morning, we were taught, and it's something that if you do one thing every morning, then you've accomplished something. So you can actually have that mindset of what's next. Mm-hmm. So every morning after I've aired it for about 30 minutes, an hour, I make the bed. So that's the first thing. It's not. And I've told this to people, and some people have said that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I've had people who have been sober for 30 years who have come back to me and said, you know what? I've been making the bed since you last talked. I said, it's great. That gives them a better mindset. Because, you know what? I get into bed at night and my bed's made, I usually just throw the covers back over me. So getting into bed in a made bed, I think I actually sleep better.
Isn't that something? Yeah, there's something about that. An accomplishment first thing in the morning.
Yeah. So that's what I do. Make the bed every day.
Do you practice? Do you practice meditation or prayer in the morning?
I don't. A very old friend of mine. She does a Mindfulness for Life podcast. She's Scottish, so she lives in the north of England now. She told me last time I was talking to her that I just said I tried meditation when I was in AA, but all I do is really just take a deep cleansing breath. And she goes, actually, that's the start to any meditation. So just breathe. I do that sometimes. I just
breathe. Yeah.
I don't know if it's psychosomatic, but it does make me feel slightly better.
Yeah, there's something about
it. Doesn't solve everything, but it gives you a pause to think, all right, what can I do?
Yeah, what you're talking about is sorry, I feel like there's a little bit of a delay on the Zoom. I apologize if I'm talking over you. There is
Not at
something
all.
about the vagus nerve that when that deep breathing begins to regulate the vagus nerve, which is responsible, I believe someone's going to call me out on this. I believe for regulating your neurotransmitters. And so that deep breathing, begins to help with the regulation of emotion.
Yeah.
I feel like so much of sobriety is about emotion management. So what you're doing, the deep cleansing breaths in the morning, making your bed, that mindful practice, that sets your day up for emotion management, it seems like.
And it helps me. I don't know. Whatever people do doesn't help everyone. But for me, just doing that, taking a deep breath every now and then, it just reminds me that I can do stuff if I put my mind to it.
Yeah, I like
And it's
what
a
you said
weird thing of
about
like,
pausing.
I've already done something important today. What can I do next?
Right. And I like what you said about pausing. Just
Yeah.
pausing. Yeah, just take a minute. We don't have to rush through everything. You said your friend's podcast was called Mindfulness for Life.
Yes.
I will put that in the show notes and check that out. I love finding new podcasts. So that's an awesome resource. What's one thing you wish you knew when you first got sober?
One thing I wish I knew when I first got sober. Oh, I think it was probably I wish I knew what I'd actually been putting Dana through before I got sober, because I had absolutely no idea. You do become self-absorbed and clueless, and you think you're trying to manage stuff, and you kind of forget everything that's going on around you. So that's, I think, would be on the top of my list.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. We do sort of wake up and realize how we've been affecting the people around us. I had the same experience. Yeah. I was like, oh, that awkward moment where you realize you're the asshole. Yes.
Yes. That's it. That is exactly it.
Oh, wow. That's
Wait,
awkward.
I did that. Yeah. And you're still talking to me?
I know. I was like, what's wrong with you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Right. Yeah. No, that's a better response. Well, that's funny. What do you guys do for fun?
Oh, sometimes we just talk, we walk. We made a promise after our golden retriever passed that we won't stop walking. So we're an oddity in our neighborhood. We're two people out walking, just walking.
Yeah. Out in nature. That's beautiful.
Yeah. We try and make it as active as possible. We bike. I mean, we go to spin class together, which is it's not something that you can talk to each other during.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Not if you're doing it right.
Yeah. We go when it's summer, we go for bike rides. Or sometimes some Saturdays we just walk the 17 blocks to downtown and have lunch, and then walk 17 blocks home, because we can justify having dessert if we have to walk there and back to get it.
That's awesome.
And this year we actually took up cross-country skiing, which, believe it or not, is a blast.
That sounds fabulous. I have never tried that. How did you start?
How did we start? We went to a place called Play It Again Sport, where you can buy secondhand equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically bought the cheapest stuff that we could get. We watched a YouTube video and we just went. So I watched a bit 3 times of how to get up when you fall over, because I thought, I'm going to need to know this, and I did. Yeah, and we just took it slow.
That's fun. It's so interesting.
We're not going to be in an Olympic squad anytime soon, but we can, and it's really great exercise, and you see nature.
And you see nature. When I was on your podcast, you had briefly mentioned that you just recently lost your puppy, and I'm so sorry to hear that. There's something so horrible about losing a beloved pet, especially in sobriety, because we feel it so much more.
Yeah, I mean, it was sad, but people were saying today, "Oh, you better look out for Maz. That might be a trigger." And it was, yes, it was a sad day. It was a terrible, sad day. But we got her when she was 5.5 weeks old, and she was 14 and a half when she died.
Wow, that's a good one.
And she was a golden retriever, so that's a long time for a golden retriever to live. And we made, you know, I wasn't going to be the person that had one of those handles around her back to help her walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went. She had a checkup, and the vet said, you know, it may be time to let her just go to sleep. So we took her home. We fed her. We FaceTimed with Quinn, because technically Lily was Quinn's dog.
Okay.
And my mom and her partner Mike was more devastated than us to see Lily go. And she had a fantastic last day. She was eating and happy right up to the last second.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
wish we
that's
could all
beautiful.
go out that way. So
yeah. Well, no, that's beautiful. I'm sorry for your loss. I just wanted to acknowledge that, because I've been through that a couple of times. It's just horrible. So, but I'm glad that you continued walking in her honor. And you mentioned spin. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We have noticed since spring finally came to North Dakota that we now have more bunnies in our backyard. So Lily did a better job of keeping them out than we actually both thought she would. Because sometimes she just lie on the deck and watch them eat Dana's kale. But now that these rabbits are everywhere.
They really? Yeah. Well, I hear rabbits are a sign of good luck. So.
Oh, well, then we got plenty here.
There's always that. Awesome. Well, what I would love to hear is your story, and you're familiar with what it was like, what happened, what it's like now format. I am sort of an interrupter, but I'll try not to be.
No, that's fine. You interrupt away.
I would love to hear. I'm always fascinated to hear about people's family of origin. You know, what it was like for you as a child. Did your parents drink? Were there experiences that you felt contributed to your drinking later? So anything you feel like sharing?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Now, if this doesn't make sense, please interrupt and ask me to go if I have to go back a step.
Okay.
So I mean, so I'll start with saying that my one of my counselors said that I was going to be in good shape for recovery because I was a late onset alcoholic. So both my grandparents were alcoholics. There's it's right, it is in our family, but there are other people who just never drank at all. One of them was my dad. Now, my mother hardly ever drank. My dad in Ireland, they have this thing called they're called the pioneers. So you take a pledge as a Roman Catholic never to drink alcohol. So when my dad was 15, he got drunk and then swore he'd never do it again. So he became a pioneer, and he also became a pioneer because he liked playing soccer instead of Gaelic football. And the pioneers had a soccer team. So he never drank and he played soccer. And so this when he drank when he was 15. He got drunk once when he was 15 and said never again, and he never drank for the rest of his life. So when I was a kid, you know, when we go to family reunions or we'd go to Ireland for holidays, I was always allowed to drink like the head off a pint of Guinness by one of my uncles. And that's, you know, that was it. And then when I got to being a teenager, my parents knew him and his friends would be going out because you can drink legally in England at 18. So I got to 14 or 15. They said, yeah, they're going to be going to parties and someone's going to bring alcohol. So they, around them, when we went out for dinner, they'd let me have a beer and they'd watch me like a hawk. And I'd have two, and then I'd say, no, I'm good. And I did that for years. And they said, he's good. And I went to college. I went to grad school. I spent a decade in college, and I always knew when to stop drinking. I never had a drink problem. And then suddenly, when I started getting older, you know, when you start getting older and you'd start going like, you didn't drink during the week and think, Friday night, let's go. And I only just know now that that's binge drinking, which is actually worse almost. You know, I never ended up. I never wake up in a field or wake up hanging out of a tree or anything like that. You know, I never did any of that. So my dad did die when I was 29. He died of cancer. You know, he died of liver cancer. A person who never drank dying of liver cancer. So I was very sad about that. I don't know what triggered me to start drinking. I started, I got through. I'm also an oddity as a biologist. I've been in continuous educational employment since I left high school. A lot of my friends never put. So I went to college. I got asked to stay to do a master's degree. I got a job. I left that to go back to grad school to get a PhD. I immediately got my first job as a postdoc. I had choices to do my second one, and I decided to come to America. I had a job there. I got another job at a university in America that I've kept, even though I slipped into alcoholism. And now I'm going to be the department chair. So, yeah, so there were some issues, and I had some arguments with people at work about doing things and how not to do things. And I just remember I kind of got fed up. And I knew I was drinking slightly more, but I didn't think it was a problem. So my alcoholism crept up on me. I'd always tell Dana, I'm only having a drink a night. And then I believed I was, but it turned out I was having 3 or 4, but I didn't admit to that. So it was a slow progression for me.
How old were you at this time?
I was 30, maybe. I'll probably say when I did start drinking heavily, I may have been about 36.
Okay. So that was about 7 years after your father passed away.
Yeah. So I can't even think if that was a connection, because people ask me all the time, what was your trigger point? I have absolutely no idea. I knew I was getting depressed, and I knew I was just drinking at night. And I try to do this thing, well, I even try to justify it when we were talking about this when I started rehab. I'd always say, I never drank during the morning. I never drank before I drove. And my counselor said, really? You're a bright guy. What do you think your blood alcohol level would have been if they'd actually pulled you over? I think, yeah, I'd have been screwed. But in my mind, I was trying to be, I come home and do that. And then I work. And I never drank at work. A lot of people didn't believe me, but I never drank at work. To me, looking back on it, I think going to work was my escape from being around alcohol. And I'd always do my job. And I think the worst thing that happened to me, and I've talked to Dana about this, is I still did my job well enough, and I got good enough student evaluations. And I'm at a unionized university that they couldn't do anything because I was doing my job. And then when people would turn against me and say, you're not doing this anymore, and I never worked out, I just got angry at them because I didn't realize that I had a drink problem.
When did you decide that when did you decide for yourself that your drinking was a problem? Did something happen? Did you have like a turning point or a moment of clarity?
I did. And here's what it was. About a week before my turning point started, I got a nosebleed at work. I was teaching a night and evening class. I just got a nosebleed that wouldn't stop. So I canceled my class. I went home. I had dinner with Dana. And at this time, I didn't even know how annoyed she was with me. She was kind of just going, why am I married to you? You used to be awesome. And I thought she was just annoyed. And of course, I didn't think I had any problem at all.
Had nothing to do with me.
It had nothing to do with me. I'm perfect. I went downstairs and I continued to bleed. And I was trying to do some work. And of course, I was drinking because I thought this will stop the bleeding, because that's how you think at some point. And I woke her up at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I thought, I've got to go to work. You got to take me to the hospital because there's something going on here. And she went into the bathroom and I was bleeding everywhere and I was trying to clear it up. And it looked like I'd slaughtered something in there. So she took me to the hospital. They cauterized my nose and said, they did some blood work and said, you have basically almost no red blood cells in your blood. So they admitted me to hospital. And I just kept lying. I actually let them do a bone biopsy on me because I was lying about the fact that I wasn't drinking a lot. I said, no, I have 1 drink a day. They said, well, you might have leukemia. We have to do a biopsy. Fine. So I let them, and I told a friend of ours who's a medical doctor, she goes, you let them do she goes, my God. She just, and what you can do at that point, just laugh at it. So I was in
That's
such
so
denial. I said,
painful too, right?
yeah,
They basically
drill a
drill a
hole in
hole
your
in your
hip.
hip.
Yeah. I said, go ahead, drill that hole. So I was in hospital for 3 days, and Dana stayed with me because Lily was still alive at the time. She goes, I've got to go and let the dog go out, and I do have a job. I'll come back and see you. So she left, and I was supposed to have a liver biopsy the next day, and I was still in denial. And then I woke up a week later because I hadn't drunk for 3 days, and apparently I went mad and went into withdrawal, and they had to stick me in a coma for a week.
Oh my goodness. So you were okay. So you were drinking so much that you were chemically dependent.
I when now that I look back at it, and I say this with absolute shame, I was drinking a bottle of Jim Beam a day.
A big bottle, I would assume. Like a handle? No.
No, I was going through one of those every 2 days, but I was actually drinking like half of it a day. So like a 750 a bottle of whiskey I was drinking a day.
Did you do that thing where you would buy it from different places?
I went to different liquor stores. I bought plastic, and I'm not alone in this. I bought the plastic travel ones because, and loads of people have said this to me. Oh yeah, because this isn't making as much noise, does it?
Right. Yeah.
And they're easy to hide. You can hide in places too.
Yeah, right. They don't make as much noise when the garbage man comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, the things they do. That's intense. Okay, so they put you in a medically induced coma for a week, did you say?
Yeah. I was in there a week, and they were saying to Dana, if he comes out of this, he might be a completely different person. And some actually said he might not come out of this.
Wow, that is so scary.
So I woke up and I was completely unaware of what was going on. I had no idea what was happening.
What was it like for you to come out of a week-long induced coma and to hear that, like, hey, we had to put you in a coma for an entire week? That must have been so shocking.
I'm glad you asked that question, because at the time I was kind of numb. And 5 years past that, looking back on it, I think I was relieved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people that said what kept them from drinking or stopping from, what kept them drinking was the idea of what would happen to them if they stopped drinking. Whereas I was lucky enough to be in a hospital when that happened. So they just stuck me in it. I've heard people talk about going through withdrawal, and I just, oh my God, I have no memory of going through withdrawal.
Well, you're an example of somebody that can go through the coma-induced detox and still stay sober, right? You don't have to have the pain of detox to deter you from drinking ever again. So did you go right into rehab after that?
So if I'm getting this story right, so I woke up after 6 days. Because that happened the 1st of February. So that's my sobriety date. That's what we go. And some people technically say, it was before that, it was a week before that if you want. I said, yeah, but I think putting my sobriety back to the day I last actually physically had a drink is a bit of a cheat, because I was in a coma. I like to do it for the day I was awake. So therefore I had a choice.
Right. Yeah. I don't know why that's so
any
funny.
Idiot cannot drink if they're unconscious.
In a coma. Yeah, that doesn't count.
So, well done.
Yeah, good job. Do you sort of think it's funny how we get so legalistic about little things like that, like sobriety dates and what counts and what doesn't count?
It is funny, but I just take it as part and parcel. Some people get annoyed about it. I just think, I don't care. I don't drink. I'm a happy alcoholic.
I don't drink.
I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
You can make any argument you want. I'm sober and I'm happy. I don't care.
Yeah, it's all that matters. Yeah.
And one of the things for me, when I was in hospital, so I was in hospital after my coma, I think for about another week. Because it was 16 days total, because I went to rehab on my 47th birthday, which was the 16th of February.
Oh, you went to rehab for your birthday? Yeah. That's fun.
I remember when I went into rehab, she said to me, date of birth. I said, today, 1970. I said, what a way to spend my 47th birthday. And this woman said this to me. Yes, but your 48th is going to be a lot better.
Oh, that's so
And she
sweet.
was dead right, because they've been awesome ever since.
That's amazing. You said your birthday is February 1st?
No, my birthday is February the 16th, but my
Oh,
sobriety
sorry.
birthday.
Yeah.
Oh, as I like to
February.
call it, your belly button birthday is
Your
February.
belly button birthday. Yeah. No, so my husband's birthday is February 2nd, 1970. So I just thought that was funny. I was like, wow, you guys are
No.
like the same age.
So
Okay, so you went.
my roommate in hospital, when I got out of the coma, my roommate had been taken in. He crashed his truck because he was drunk, and his girlfriend was in. They put an extra bed in there so his girlfriend could lie next to him. And I could hear him when. So I was awake for about 3 days, and they were asking him the questions they were asking me. You know, every time they came in, they asked him, "Do you know what day it was? What's your birthday?" You know, it's things like, you know, who's current president of the United States. And this dude didn't have a freaking clue. He had no idea when he was born. He had no idea what his parents' names were.
Oh, wow.
And he was like that for about a week. And this is the thing one of the things that has kept me sober ever since. So these little moments, because I shook his hand when he left, and I said, "Good," and he said, "Good luck to you." I said, "Oh my God, good luck for you." And he said to me, "It's too late for me." And that's one of the things that has always been back here, that I never want that to happen now. I've dodged a huge bullet. I feel ashamed, but not ashamed enough that it's going to ruin my life. I feel ashamed enough to move on and say, "Oh, let's keep going." And that's not bad for a Catholic, to stop at a certain amount of shame.
You know what's interesting? I interviewed Dr. Anna Lemke. She wrote a book called Dopamine Nation, and she speaks about Alcoholics Anonymous and the idea of prosocial shame. And it's almost, isn't it interesting? Yeah. She speaks of it in terms of being able to use the feeling of shame as a motivator, or in a positive way. Like, not all shame is bad or destructive. We are very sensitive, I think, in the 12-step programs, and people with trauma are very sensitive to shame, but not all of it is bad. And it sounds like you're using it as leverage to support your recovery. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. You know, and yeah, so I remember that. And then just to tell the whole story, you should get Dana on to get the other side of this.
Oh, I will. Yeah.
So there was an argument that I remember, because this social worker came to see me, and I was still under the impression that I could fix myself. I thought, all right, I'm sober, I've got clarity of thought, bring it, I can do it, I can go back to work. So this social worker put the idea in my head that I could go to night release. So go home, just go to work, and then spend 3 hours a night, every night, in an AA meeting. And Dana said, yeah, no, that's not happening. So she came and subtly suggested to me that if I don't go into rehab, I won't be coming home.
Okay. Like inpatient?
Yeah. She said, okay, you have to do it. And then she even said to me, I don't care if it doesn't work, and I'll deal with it if it doesn't work, but I need you for us to do it, which was a compelling argument. And I'm very glad I said yes.
That's a compelling argument. Yes, sir. Okay, so was it like a 30-day, 28 days?
It was 6 weeks.
Oh my goodness, that's a good one.
So I went in on my birthday. The first week was tough because my counselor, Joanne Spearing, bless her, I owe this woman my life, to be honest with you. She just ripped me a new one about, I was in there a week and I kept saying, I'm good, I'm fine. As soon as I get out of here, yes, I can do all this, I'm good. And she said to me, you know what? You're hearing everything I'm saying to you, but you're not listening. And to this day, I know the difference between those two statements. And I think I always will. She also said to me, I don't want to hear the word but out of your mouth, because I was making an excuse for everything. And I think in 5 years, 5 years, 3 months, 2 weeks and 3 days, I have never said the word but in a sentence, unless it's appropriate to do so. That has nothing to do with what I've just done.
That's so funny. And I think we all do it when we first get sober is yeah, but,
Yeah.
but.
So she brought Dana in completely unawares to me. She brought Dana in to talk to my group. And she had a massive argument with me because she gave me a bit of homework and I didn't bother doing it because I thought there was nothing wrong with it.
What was the homework? Do you remember?
It was a questionnaire about how you feel about it. It was a psychological, sociological thing about feelings. And I thought, I don't need this, I'm fine. Which was, if one of my students had done that, I would have flogged them. I was just in a complete mess. So she brought Dana in, and that day kind of really turned me around.
Yeah.
I sat in Dana's car in the parking lot. She just screamed at me. I went back in, and everyone went, "Dude, you came back." They thought I had a bet. She said, "Well, we'll never see him again." And I just turned it around. And for the next 3 weeks, I listened. I realized there was something wrong with me. I started paying attention. I started actually understanding what we were doing, and I embraced it. And I started realizing that it wasn't I'm perfect, it's I need fixing. And that was just amazing. So after about 4 weeks, Joanne called me into her office and she said, "Maz," and I thought, oh, what have I done? What have I done wrong? I think I'm doing everything right. She said, "So how do you feel if you went home tonight and were here by 8:30?" So it was a weekend. It was a Thursday night, actually, because they always take you in or let you out on a Tuesday or a Thursday. If you go home Thursday night, tomorrow you come back at 8:30, and then for the next 3 weeks or 2 weeks at least, you come in at 8:30 to 3:30, and you do inpatient or outpatient with us. And I still to this day I think it was a test, because the first thing I said was, "Let's check with Dana." So she phoned Dana up, and she explained to Dana. I could hear Dana on the phone going, "Oh my God, yes, I'll be there at 4:30." So, and I'm going to tell you this story now. And this, whoever listens to this, this is not what you should do your first night home from a rehabilitation center. Do not do this. It's just, for me, it worked.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I know. You sat up a bit. So what Dana did, we got home and Dana made dinner, and then she slammed her hand on the counter. I said, "Well, what's the matter?" She says, "I can't believe I can't just open a glass of wine because you're an alcoholic." And we live about 30 yards from a really nice local restaurant and wine bar. And I said to Dana, "Well, let's go across the street and I'll have a lemonade and you have a glass of wine. And if this goes pear-shaped, you can take me back to rehab." She went, "Really?" I said, "Well, we got to find out somehow." So we walked across the street. I had a lovely lemonade. She had a glass of wine. And we came home. She goes, "How do you feel?" I went, "Great." And I went in the next day and told Joanne what I did. And she looked at me and went, "Are you insane?" I said,
"Are you
"I'm
mad?"
fine." So she breathalyzed me. I said, "Yeah, I told you." She goes, "Have you told anyone you did this?" I said, "No." She goes, "Well, don't, because that was stupid."
Because that was stupid.
But it worked. I just knew then I could go out and have a meal out and not panic.
Yeah. I mean, I had that sense of too, when I was done, and maybe you just had that sense that you were just done.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I can't believe how lucky I am. One of my sponsors has to. He said he has to go to a 7:30 AA meeting every day of the week, because that's it. He said, "I wake up and I think about drinking."
Wow.
I don't.
Yeah, me
neither. I just feel like, now I'm not complacent. I don't go to AA meetings every week, and if you're interested, I'll tell you that little story. I go because I'd like to go, not because I need to go. And if I ever think I need to go, I really will go. But I'm just happy to live my life. And a really, really wise man said to me, He retired and moved to Arizona. He was sober for 38 years before he moved to Arizona. Well, he still is sober, but that's the last time I saw him. He said to me, "How you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm in a bit of a tiz because Dana wants me to go out for a meal with friends on next Friday night, but I'll miss AA." And he sat me down and he said, "If you start missing your life because you're in AA, nothing's going to change." He said, "You miss so much of your life drinking. If you have a chance to go out and miss an AA meeting and you're cool about it, and you have your plan in your backup plan in place," he said, "you need to live your life." And I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
So, we learned.
Great. That's great advice. I mean, the whole purpose is to get back into life, not to hide out in meetings.
I mean, we learned that we have backup plans. You have a plan A, a plan B, and even down to a plan Z or Z. So when we went to our first gala, so we went to for the Fargo Moorhead Symphony, there was a fundraising gala. So the plan with those is to get everyone drunk and they hope you got your checkbook.
Right.
So there was drink everywhere, but I just sat there drinking, sipping me Diet Coke, quite happy. But we had plans. So if we got too much, I would initially walk out the room and walk around the corridor of the hotel that had 3 or 4 conference rooms. If that didn't work, I was going to go outside and walk around in the fresh air. And if that didn't work, I was going to tell Dane, and we would make a little white lie up and say, "Oh, we got to go and look after the dog." But I didn't need any of that. I still have plans. And the first big trips we took, I looked up AA meetings at where we were going in case I needed to go to one. So if you plan that and you've got a safety net, you can live your life.
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? Get out there and live your life. And so over the 5 years that you've been sober, I know, especially now that you and Dana do a lot of work in helping people with relationships, what do you see are some of the common problems and solutions that you deal with in married couples that are getting sober?
I know some people in AA that they've got divorced, and one of these guys said, "I got to tell you this." We were in a little meeting, and he said, "I'm getting divorced." He said, "I got sober and I realized that I have nothing in common with my wife because she's still drinking." Or there was other one that said, we just have nothing. I'm sober, I've moved on, she hasn't." Or you get the flip, I've moved on, he hasn't. People blame each other. They can't get over that. One of them resents the other one for having a drink in front of them. I think, why are you resenting someone who isn't an alcoholic having an alcoholic drink? They're not the one with the problem.
Yeah, I always wondered, I always wondered how that would work, because both my husband and I are sober, but I do know lots of people who have a spouse who is not sober. And it seems like if you have decided for yourself that, and are very clear that, like, if I decided I just can't drink and that's all about me, and you do what you want, then that can be okay.
I mean, a friend of ours, Betsy Birmingham, she's a dean of a college in Canada now. She said to me way before I've known a woman for 20 years. This is even before I actually had a drinking problem and became an alcoholic. She'd been a long time alcoholic enjoying sobriety. She said, "You have no idea how many fun non-alcoholic drinks there are." And she was absolutely right. Well, we went to Hawaii on a holiday for spring break, and I don't have them a lot because they're like liquid cheesecake. I love non-alcoholic pina coladas. They're awesome.
Cheesecake.
They're about 1,000
a lot of calories.
Yeah, but they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I was at a conference with Dana, 2018. We went to Montreal. I've been to France many times because it's a small hop from England, but Montreal is a place where you actually start thinking you're in France. You forget you're in Canada.
That's right.
So we were watching the World Cup final in a fantastic French bar overlooking the quayside and the dock in Montreal, watching the World Cup final. We went to see it because it was France. It was France-Croatia. I was in the middle of this conference, and when we got back, people said, "Where have you been?" So I was by the quayside watching the World Cup final. They went, "Oh yeah, fair enough." But I had a plate of fries and 4 virgin pina coladas, and I had a blast.
It had like 4,000 calories.
Yeah, I consumed the weight of an elephant in sugar, but I had a really good time.
It was really fun. I feel like the only thing that has any flavor are calories and cholesterol and sugar.
But I
That's
use
awesome.
I when we go out, I drink a non-alcoholic beer because I never really drank beer, and I've never experienced, I could just have a real one. I just have no interest in drinking alcohol, and non-alcoholic beers are actually quite tasty.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because I feel like I've sort of changed my mind about non-alcoholic beverages, like wine and beer specifically. And I know now that there's even like non-alcoholic hard liquors. And it used to think, well, that makes no sense. I don't do pretend heroin or smoke pretend weed. You know what I mean? It's like, why?
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of don't get it. And I realized that, but then I talked to a gal. Hi, Dana. She just popped in the room. I
She just bought
realized,
me another coffee, bless her.
oh, isn't that sweet? I just realized that so I talked to a gal who said that the non-alcoholic beer saved her in the beginning.
Yeah,
Like
I can
she
see
was
that.
convinced that it made her still feel a part of, um, and it sort of eased her transition in the beginning. And I just thought, well, that isn't that just the longer I'm sober, the less I know what's right for I don't know what's right for anyone else, honestly. But I was told that it's a bad idea. So I was so desperate to be sober. I just did what I was told.
Oh, I did. I really hummed and hawed over it because I kind of had a 50-50 split. There's alcohol in it. Some have 0.05% alcohol in them. Some have absolutely none.
Yeah.
But, and I'm a plant biologist, so I also know this to be true because I actually looked up and found the original reference when Heineken Zero's, it was Heineken Zero. So they changed it to Heineken 0. They didn't write the word zero. They had the numbers 0.0.
Right.
There's actually 0.03% alcohol on average in a non-alcoholic Heineken, but there is more alcohol in a carrot if you boil it because of the chemical reactions than there is in that beer.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Whenever I put, in the age of COVID, everyone's got gallons of hand sanitizer and it's like mostly alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. So I always wondered, I go, I wonder how much alcohol I'm absorbing through my skin.
Yeah. I mean,
it's negligible.
If you really want to think about that, it's actually quite frightening. One of the things that you don't think about it. And someone said, you can't use mouthwash ever again because in most mouthwash, it's 20% alcohol. So but you can get the non-alcoholic ones.
Yeah.
I wish they'd make the
free
travel, when you're going away in a plane, you can only be 3 hours. I wish they'd make non-alcoholic travel ones because the first thing I've got to do now when I go anywhere is go and buy non-alcoholic mouthwash.
Yeah, all the alcohol-free stuff. Yeah. Well, I think I really appreciate that a lot of manufacturers like NyQuil makes like alcohol-free medicine.
I like
and
that
Listerine has alcohol-free mouthwash. And so it is nice, but that is interesting. I think everybody has to decide that for themselves if they're going to try non-alcoholic beer or wine or like vodka or to me, it doesn't really make sense.
I would never drink a non-alcoholic whiskey because of the taste.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a trigger.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
But see, the beer didn't do it. But when I was about 11 months sober, Dana said to me, "What do you miss?" I said, "You know what? I always equate like a nice something with like spaghetti or angel hair pasta in it with having a glass of white wine." I said, "I don't know why, but if you said to me now, how about pesto and angel hair pasta for dinner? What would you like?" And I said, "Yeah, and a glass of white wine." I said, "That's what goes through my head." I said, "I don't want to start drinking white wine, so don't get me wrong." So we walked over to Bernie's, our local liquor store, and got a alcohol-free wine, or de-alcohol wine, they call them. I don't know if you ever had. They're disgusting.
Do you know, I have to confess, I have used non-alcohol or alcohol-free white wine for a cooking recipe. Like I couldn't even bring myself to buy the real wine for cooking because I didn't like the fumes. I know it gets cooked, the alcohol gets cooked out apparently, but I don't even mess with it. I'm too afraid.
I was delighted. It tasted so bad. I thought, right, I don't need to think about non-alcoholic wine ever again because it was so bad.
That is so funny. Yeah. Well, okay, so that's
the only downside about all of this is there's some weird quirk in the state of North Dakota and Minnesota is you can buy all these wonderful non-alcoholic beers from a liquor store.
You got to walk into the lion's den to get your alcohol-free drinks.
I don't mind doing that, but once Dana got annoyed with herself. I've been sober about 2 years, and she said to me, "Oh, you're going to say I'm going sticking at Bernie's to get me non-alcoholic beer." She said, "Oh, can you get me a bottle of wine?" I thought, sure, and it's probably the closest I've ever had to being having a panic attack. Was trying to, I was in the line, and I handed it to them, and I put my non-alcoholic beer down, and I didn't buy anything. I left, and I went and told Dana, and I said, "I'm sorry, I couldn't do it." And then she burst into tears because she felt so bad about the fact that I was. She's never asked. She just said, "Never buy me anything." They said, "Even if you know I want something, get your stuff, come back, and I'll walk across with you." And we just do that instead. But
that's sweet.
That was a terrible experience for me. As I thought, it's not even for me. What are you doing? I thought, "Oh, I can't." And I just completely had some weird reaction that anyone ever thinking I was buying anything alcoholic.
I hear you. Okay, I just have to tell you a quick little story. So I'm an obsessive cookie decorator. It's a whole thing. Don't even ask. However, I'm on Instagram watching all these women use this technique with gold powder stuff. And they say that you have to use it, mix it with something that has a high alcohol content, like Everclear or And I was like, what? Because I was using clear vanilla extract because there's a little bit of alcohol, but it wasn't, when you paint it on, it's not smooth. Like it doesn't look like, anyway, it's a whole thing. So they said, so they were like, you need something with high alcohol content. So I live in Idaho, where you can only buy hard alcohol in a liquor store. Same, right?
Yeah.
So I walk into, I felt like I was doing something really wrong. I walked into a liquor store to get one of those teensy bottles. I don't even know how many ounces it is. It's probably like 2 or 3 ounces, maybe. I don't even know. But one of those teeny tiny little bottles of hard alcohol. And I felt so uncomfortable. And they were right by the register. I had kind of walked around. I didn't see Everclear. I walked around and I was like, what am I doing in here? I felt like I was doing something wrong. And then there were people queuing up at the register, and I was too embarrassed or uncomfortable. I don't know what was going on to grab one of those little things. And I left, and I had my 21-year-old son go buy it for me.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of those little bottles, I never bought them when I was drinking. And
because why?
Because here's why. I actually remember looking back on this, I thought I would never buy them because that's the sign of an alcoholic.
So funny, the arbitrary
ones.
the arbitrary little rules that we have of what it means to be alcoholic. I love that when you get sober that you get to sort of redefine so many things. So many, not the least of which is our own identity, right? You get to reestablish your identity and be who you want to be.
I also noticed how much advertising goes into alcohol since I've been sober.
Yeah, it's not funny.
And they really try and make it real sexy as well.
Yeah, it's not. It's so funny. People are like, "Oh, I thought I was so funny and I was so sexy and sex was great and blah, blah." I was like, you're a hot mess. I was a hot mess. That's not attractive. A sloppy drunk is not attractive. Easy, but not attractive.
Yeah. There's a huge difference.
Big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say, with age comes wisdom.
Well, I'm still waiting. I don't
Dana
know.
always says that a good education is wasted on the young.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Youth is wasted on the young. Well, listen, I just adore you and your wife. I love the work. I love your podcast, the work that you're
Thank you.
doing. You're coming from such a sweet, heart-centered place, which I really appreciate. And congratulations on your 5 years and your willingness to be open about your recovery so that other people can look at you and go, oh, we're not so different, right? Like maybe I can admit that, this guy looks pretty, cleaned up. You're a doctor, you're a professor and
Oh
happily
my God.
married.
Can I just tell you one more little story?
Please.
Uh, we had a guest on called Patty. She is a licensed counselor, and she set up this thing in Fargo called Soul Solutions. It's a treatment center next to just a coffee shop. And the coffee shop, anyone can go to the coffee shop. It just happens to be next to a chemical addiction center. So we went there and she does great work. And this thing's now up and running. But the guy who made us our coffee was a recovering alcoholic. And I just got talking to him. And he says, how long have you been sober? I said, 5 years, 3 months and a few days. And he goes, what do you do? I said, I'm a biology professor. He goes, how long have you been doing that? I said, 16 years. And Dana pointed out on it too. He just had that look of, wait, you can do what you do and be a recovering alcoholic. And it kind of, I like to think it sets something off in him, but well, what's stopping me from doing something different?
Exactly.
Because this is one of the reasons when Dana came to me, because she was the driving force behind this, and said, do you want, it's coming up on your 3-year anniversary. Can we tell people about this? And we were in the local paper, and I thought, I'm going to be in trouble at work. And I wasn't. Everyone went, well done.
Yeah. Yeah. We're so afraid of what people think, but it's what a nice surprise to feel so supported, huh?
And I just thought, when she started, yeah, 3 years. And I talked to people about openly. I said, you know what, the hell with it. It's not my problem if someone has a problem with the fact that I used to be an alcoholic. Well, I am an alcoholic, but I used to be a drunk. And
You're
I'm an
recovered.
alcoholic enjoying sobriety, Yeah. So let's do it. But it was Dana's idea, and I'm glad she came out with it. I'm glad I said yes, because she really, if I had said no, we wouldn't have done any of this. So
Right.
God,
Yeah.
bless Dana Del Val for
Bless
doing
Dana.
it. I mean, it's amazing how many people we've reached. About a year ago, I phoned up the IT department at MSUM where I work to thank them, because they did a quick extra exam for me in finals week. And so they said, yeah, scantrons are done. And it's on the guy on the phone said, while you're here, as I just want to say, I listened to you and your wife's program, and you're doing great work. I thought, wow. We get random things like that locally all the time. And of course, you always want to build your audience. Sometimes you get like 170 views, sometimes you get 14. But if we just need to get that to get bigger, but people are listening to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're doing good work. And I have had the experience where it made me feel like all my suffering wasn't for nothing. Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
great.
maybe there's somebody listening who hears something and it makes the difference for them that day.
Yeah, exactly.
And if that's all we do, our work is done.
Yeah. I mean, I had to do something, because we did this because people kept saying to Dana, and especially, they never said it to me, they always said it to Dana. What happened to you two? You're just happy.
What happened to you? That's weird. Why are you happy?
You're happy. And we just said, well, we are. So let's tell people why.
Yeah.
So we did.
No, it's beautiful. Well, I highly encourage everyone to listen to your podcast, Daily Dose.
Oh, thank you.
I'll leave links in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your stories today.
Thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
We'll do it again. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Take care. Bye.